You're here. Welcome to the Masterminding Success podcast. They say if you want to be successful in business and in life, then surround yourself with successful people. So pull up a seat. The mastermind is about to begin.
Hey, glad you could join us for another episode of the Masterminding Success podcast. We're your hosts, Keith Wheeler
and Nuria Corby.
And what are we talking about today, Nuria?
Today, we're going to talk about how important is an email list and do we really need one? So what do you think about that? Do you need an email list?
I'll tell you, an email list was something that everybody told me you need, like all the quote gurus and everybody else. And it was the one thing that I put off forever. And because I really didn't think I needed it, it's just one more thing to do, one more thing to keep track of. And the short answer is, from my experience, you really do. You really do. They're the only, and people that are listening to this probably already heard this 100 times before, if not more, but they're the only way to make Amazon's customers your customers, and, I have a market research background. I've been doing market research for over 20 years. And so I have more pressing reasons than just quote, making them my customers. To me, it's more about learning more about my customer. And you can't learn anything about your customers if you don't have a way to connect to them. And that's what an email list is for.
Absolutely. That just really took me back because if I think about my previous businesses, I don't even think I knew what an email list was. I never had an email list. And when I started blogging, that's when people kept saying, your email list is the most important thing in your business. And I thought, why? I didn't even know why an email list was important. I didn't even know, how would I even go about setting one up? How do you do that? It was a really abstract concept to me, having an email list. And I only really understand now what an email list really can do for your business. And I think for us as authors or anybody who has an online business, it's what you said. Your Amazon customers are not your customers, they're Amazon's customers. We don't know who buys our books. And the only way we can get in touch with those people is through an email address. And there are ways of getting those email addresses from people. But it goes for any business. I mean, any business is, especially online, you really do need that email list because you can have a business on eBay, on Amazon, on Shopify, all sorts of platforms, and you're really playing in that platform's sandpit. You have no control over who your customers are because it's not your platform. And the email list is the only way you can connect to your customers without depending on another platform.
Right.
Those email lists are your direct link to your customers. And it's really funny how it took me this long to really understand that. Did that happen to you? Did you always know how valuable an email list was?
Like I said, I didn't because I kept putting it off. But eventually I finally was like, okay, I'm just going to do it. And for one, I think the biggest issue was it just seemed like such a daunting task. It seemed like such a, the fear of the unknown. I got to set up the landing page. I've got to, I got to send out weekly newsletters. I've got to do all this other stuff that I quote have to do. And it was all of that stopped me from doing it. And it really wasn't until I just, put on my adult hat and said, you know what, this is, if I really want this to be my business, and I want to treat it as such, then I need to respect my business enough to give myself as much chance of success as possible. And if everybody's talking about doing this, email list thing, everybody can't be wrong, and it might be some extra work, which it wasn't nearly as much work as I was afraid it was going to be. But, I'm doing my business a disservice if I don't at least try. And for those people that are reluctant like I was, here's some devil advocate things to think about. let's say you're using KDP, a great example, right? And you launch your books on KDP. KDP, for whatever reasons, right, wrong, or indifferent, closes your account.
Mhm.
How are you going to, and you decide, okay, now I'm going to put it on Lulu, and now I'm going to put it on my website. Well, how are your customers going to know that? You've got no way to tell them. What if you have an Etsy account? Yeah, and Etsy, you communicate with them, you communicate with customers, you're the customer service and everything else. But do you know the age range of the people buying it? You might have ideas, but I actually, because I have an email list, I can send out a 2-question survey and ask them, what are their age range? What are the hobbies do they have? And that's a great way to, this is kind of like beyond the newsletter, like above and beyond, but I ask them what other things they're interested in, and I give them a list of things, and then another specify. And it's just one question. And I don't do surveys all the time. I do them once every couple of months. And again, just 1 or 2 questions. But finding out what other things they're interested in is a great way for me to get ideas for new niches. And where I already have a potential audience, because if 35% of the people that answer my newsletter survey tell me that they're interested in this other niche, well, that's already customers built in, into a niche I haven't even created anything for yet, and again, this is kind of like above and beyond topic, tactics, but again, it's all comes down to that newsletter, and you learn so much about them, and just communicate. It's the one way where they can hear, if you feel like sharing it, some of your behind the scenes, like, I might talk about, my youngest daughter just got married, and I'll talk about that. And the emails I get back, people actually take the time not only to read the newsletter, but respond to it, and then they feel like, more like a friend than just somebody they buy a book from.
Definitely. It's all about connection, isn't it? It's
It
about
is.
having that connection with your buyers. And I think for anyone who's listening or watching and they're thinking, well, how do I even start an email list? What should I do? I think if you are new to publishing, don't worry about an email list just yet, because it is a bit daunting at the beginning. I think when you're first starting, don't worry about things like that. That will come later. Just concentrate on creating the best books that you can create. Familiarize yourself with the upload process. Just get comfortable in what you're doing. I think sometimes we try and take on too much too soon, and it's doing it at the right time. It doesn't have to be straight away when you're first starting. Just give yourself time to feel comfortable with what you're doing. And then when you think, well, I've published these books, I really want to take this a little bit further. I want to make more sales. What can I do now? Then is the time to really look at how to start an email list. And the first thing that you can do, because I know it seems a little bit overwhelming, because you think, oh, where do I start? What is an email list? What do I write? The first thing you can do is just to look into it. Look into how to start an email list. And to do that, all you have to do is maybe Google email service providers. And I'm sure you've heard of companies like MailChimp, MailerLite. I'm with ActiveCampaign. That's another one. There's another one that people mention a lot, ConvertKit. And they all offer different plans. There's some that you can start off for free, like MailerLite and ConvertKit. And MailChimp used to do free, but I think now they don't. So just look into it. That's your first step, just to sort of get yourself familiarized with how they word things, the jargon, what they call things. Because I found that a little bit overwhelming at first. I didn't know what a lead magnet was, and I didn't know what they're all terms that are very alien to people who are just starting out. So once you get yourself familiarized with all of those things, then the first thing you want to do is to sign up with one of those email providers, and maybe ask your friends or people that are already, that already have email lists, have a look who they're using, or even when you're getting emails from people, because we all get emails from all sorts of different things, check and see the ones that you really like and the ones that are quite efficient. Who are they using? Because usually it says that underneath the email. It'll say
Yep.
send through MailerLite or send whatever
Right.
it says. So just familiarize yourself with those sort of companies. Would you say that's a good way to start?
I would. Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is just like you said, looking into it. I wouldn't go full honey badger like I have a tendency to do, because again, it can go back to there's a lot of information out there, and all the information out there can make it seem more daunting and scarier and more overwhelming than it really is. So yeah, I would say, I mean, I use Aweber, but I would say, yeah, look at options, look at platforms, start with something free. Because many times it's free until you get a certain number of subscribers, and and then maybe just look and see, okay, how much is that next tier, just so you know ahead of time. It's not a big deal, but just to know so you can plan. But kind of getting to what you were saying about looking at what other newsletters, what people are doing as far as who they're using. Also look and see the format that the newsletters are in. What kind of format do you like? I mean, the format that I do is very different than most of the newsletters that I receive. So a lot of times people write big long paragraphs, like almost like a 2-page, and mine are very short, sweet, and to the point. Mine usually are all, majority of the time, are wrapped around a topic of a recent video I did, and so I just say a little bit, and then I've got the video there. So those are the ones I do for like my YouTube channel and that brand. For my children's brand, my children's book brand, then my layout and everything else is completely different. So it really, sign up for one or two in the niche that you're in, and see what people, what other people in your niche are doing in their newsletters, not to copy, but to get ideas, to get inspiration. You might sign up for two of them and realize that the way they're doing it is not what you like. Well, then now what you don't like, and you can tailor yours to something more along the lines of what someone like you would enjoy reading, because that's what it all comes down to is you don't want a newsletter or an email list just to have one. You need to send regular communication. It doesn't have to be a newsletter. We say newsletter a lot, but it doesn't have to be. It can just be messages, that, hey, I've got a book coming out pretty soon, but sending things on a regular basis, doesn't have to be once a month. It could be once every, or it doesn't have to be once a week. It could be once every 2 weeks, once a month, whatever. Some people I know, especially authors that write more like epic novels, they might send them out once a quarter, but I think it really does come down to having a plan, just like with anything in business, in writing, whatever, is to be consistent. And so figure out how frequently you think you can really do it. Do you think realistically you can do one once a week, or do you think once every 2 weeks is more realistic for you? And keep that in the back of your mind as well. Again, you haven't started a newsletter yet. You haven't started an email list. These are just thoughts. These are just things to kind of prepare yourself and see realistically what you think you can do. Because I have seen people with all the different cadences, once a week, once every 2 weeks, once every month, once every quarter. I've seen all of those happen. I've seen all of those be successful because the audience knows what to expect.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and again, it can be really overwhelming to hear all that and be like, oh, now I got to do one for every week. And no, you don't, just, again, going back to what you said, just starting out, just look at what you like reading, where are they doing it from? What are their prices? And then, like I said, then think to yourself realistically, if I do a newsletter or if I do any kind of communication, How frequently can I do it without it being too overwhelming?
Yeah. And I think that that's a really good point, because it can be overwhelming. And just even thinking about, oh, what shall I even say? What are people going to be interested in? I think it helps to plan in advance a little bit. And you, like you said earlier, you can look through other people's emails and see what their topics are. What do they talk about? The other thing is, I always thought of, how do I address them? And I think when I first started sending out emails, they probably sounded very sort of stilted, very serious, and very formal. And I think what you have to do is you have to talk to your email subscribers like you would talk to a friend or a family member, because then it's more your voice, and then you can keep being you consistently, because it's very difficult to go from whoever you are to then suddenly start a formal letter or a formal announcement or whatever. Just keep it in your own tone of voice. Be yourself, basically, is what I'm trying to say, because if you're not yourself, it's very difficult to be somebody else all the time. So you have to be yourself and just talk to people the way you would normally talk to them. And then you can tell them all sorts of things. You can tell them about your day, like you said earlier. You can tell them about, again, like you said, about someone getting married in your family. All these little personal details, you may think, oh, that's not important to them. And it isn't, but it's showing them a glimpse into your lives, into who you are, what you're about. And people like that. I find that a lot of the people that subscribe to my newsletter, they email me back and they ask me questions and they tell me about their stuff. And that's really nice, because then you can have it's all about that connection. You have a real connection with your subscribers. And if you're publishing a book and you're creating an email list for your books, you might not hear from them so much, but they're hearing from you. And they've subscribed to you for a reason, because they like your books and they like your tone of voice, or they like how you teach something, whatever it is that you publish. So just keep being yourself, and you can get inspiration from all sorts of places. And it's almost a little bit like, I don't know if you used to write a diary when you were younger, but I used to write Dear Diary, and then everything I used to do during the day. It's a little bit like that, but obviously more grown up and more tailored to your business. So, but you can get inspiration in so many places, and it does help to kind of make a list of topics that you can then write about. That really helps. And there's lots of information online as well on how to do that. So it's all about doing it step by step. Just do a little bit at a time. First of all, just inform yourself what kind of email service providers are there. When you've got an idea of them, choose one. And, the best thing is to start for free, like you said, because you can always change later. You can swap and sort of migrate your email list to somebody else's platform. And the reason you subscribe to an email service provider, maybe we didn't really discuss this, but the reason for that is because you can't sell thousands of emails from your Gmail list, for example, or from your own. So you do need an email providers, an email service provider that can send hundreds of emails in one go. That is why. And I hope I explained that correctly. Would you say that is the reason?
That's the main reason why, because otherwise it's going to go towards spam and no one's going to be able to read what you got. So it needs to come from an established email provider.
That's right. Yeah, because that's one thing I didn't understand either. I thought, why do we need an email provider?
Why don't I just send it from my Gmail account? Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't work. So that's why. And then once you've got that, it's all about planning what you're going to tell people about. What would you like people to know? And it's not about promoting something either, because you should promote very little and offer value foremost. So if you have created an email list because you want to promote your books, you can't just promote your books all the time. You do have to provide some kind of value. So tell people about how you created your book, or why that book is so important to you, or what's the story behind the book, or maybe you want to teach them about something. So provide some value. And I would say provide value 80% of the time and promote 20% or less of the time. So it's a very fine line between promoting and offering value. And sometimes promoting is offering value as well. If you're letting people know about a new tool that's come out, or, you know, whatever that is, even though you're promoting something, at the same time you're informing somebody.
Right.
So, you know, there is a balance, but I've seen people promoting nonstop, and that's, in my opinion, I know there's different opinions about this as well, but in my opinion, I tend to unsubscribe quickly from those kind of lists. So
Agreed.
I think you need to balance it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of email lists do you like, Keith?
I tell you, you said a couple of things that really piqued my interest, but I think the easiest way to think about what to include, what to write about, is human beings are social creatures. There's a reason why there's always a new social media platform coming out, you know? And so, you know, and it goes back to that 80-20 rule that you said. The same kind of mentality that you would put into your business's social media accounts, that's the kind of stuff you can share in a newsletter. You know, it doesn't like I said, it doesn't have to be, you know, super lengthy. You know, sharing images, sharing videos, sharing, you know, whatever, as long as it's relevant. You know, it doesn't have to be relevant to your newest book or relevant to whatever, as long as it's relevant to your audience. You know, people buy from people that they know, like, and trust. And so that's one reason why, and I know that some people are going to be way more open and comfortable with sharing intimate information about themselves as their family, you know, personal stuff, and kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit on your business and showing them a little bit about the person behind the business, because you have a much better chance of someone buying from you if they know you, not they know your business. And I know that some people are more comfortable with that than others. So don't do more than what you're, you know, comfortable with. But with that, start getting a little comfortable with being uncomfortable too. You know, there's a happy medium that you can find there, and that's really going to be an individual basis. You know, based on you and your business, and, you know, what you're willing to be a little bit more, you know, open about. Like, I don't like, I'll share stories about my grandkids. Very seldom will I share a picture of my grandkids, you know, little things like that. But that's enough, you know, sharing stories about my 3-year-old and how her newest thing is that she loves to dress up like a princess. And so she's got this, you know, this whole thing in her room, this whole shelf on the closet, where it's all these different princess dresses that I bought her. And so she'll go through like 2 or 3 in a day. You know, I'll share that kind of stuff in my newsletter. I won't necessarily show a picture of her wearing a princess dress.
Absolutely. I think that's really important, because so many people can relate to you then. Because I think sometimes, as people who have YouTube channels or authors or whatever we are, people always think we're not real, or we're quite detached from them, and we're just normal people like anybody else. You know, it's like,
Right.
we're just normal people. And
Right.
I think if that comes through in our emails and in whatever we do, then people can relate to us. And I think that's a nice thing. That's, again, about connecting with people. So, you know, sometimes I get days where I think, I don't know what to, I've got to write a newsletter, I've got to write an email. I really don't know what to write. Why don't I write that? You know, I just tell people, I'm supposed to write an email today, and I'm hitting a block. I'm hitting a wall. I don't know what to do. Do you get days like that sometimes? And then you kind of ask them how they feel and
Yes.
what their day has been like. It's about, you know, think of them as a friend. You're communicating with someone, you know, you don't know them, but you do know them in a way. So that's another thing I sometimes, I don't know if I've done that yet, but I will do as soon as.
I Yeah, I mean, you brought up a really good point about asking questions. And it kind of goes back to what I had said before. I really do look at it as almost a way of like an off branch of social media,
Yeah.
you know, getting that interaction to get people not only to click your email and read your email, but then to respond to your email. It gives you that connection. And some people that write under a pen name, and it may be a completely, let's say you're a guy and you write in romance, but your pen name is a female because most uh romance novelists are female.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do I write a newsletter as a female? And so I can see it can be difficult. But really just again, just making it more about them, making it more about the person at the other end, then they feel that connection. And especially after 2020, connections are things that people are always looking for. And more people, in my experience, are staying home more still, but still looking for that connection. And a newsletter is a great way to connect to them, an email list, and just, asking them, like you said, I have no clue what to write today, but, I wanted to send you something, you know, so this is what I'm working, this is what I'm working on, or, just, and what are you working on? Well, how is your week gone if you send it weekly, or how is your month gone if you send it monthly or whatever? And again, you'll be surprised how many people respond back, really. And because I know I was.
Yeah.
So I know it can be overwhelming. I know it can be scary. And I know that we had said, if you're just starting out in your business, don't necessarily worry about it. That said, I wouldn't go to the extreme and do like I did and wait years and put it off and put it off. It's very easy, especially when you get, your business starts to pick up and and you're starting to see success. It's easy to just keep putting it on the back burner, keep putting it on your to-do list till it never gets to done. But it's really something that out of all the people that I know that have email lists, I don't know of anybody who regrets starting one.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And you made an excellent point there when you said about what if you're a male author, but you're writing under a female pen name? How do you communicate? And I think that is a perfect example. And I think it's all about also being flexible, and maybe, or what if you're a brand? What if you create coloring books? And how do you communicate as a brand?
Mm-hmm.
There are ways of doing that, but it's all about being very flexible, and the essence of who you are should come through as well.
Right.
And a lot of people manage to do it. I mean, famous examples is like J.K. Rowling. She writes all the Harry Potter books under that name, but she's also got, is it the sci-fi crime or something like that under Robert Galbraith? Yeah. So, that's a male, because obviously she chose a male name because that was more that genre.
Right.
It's possible. It's definitely possible to do that and still maintain a connection. So yeah, it's all about being flexible and finding your own way of doing things. And you don't have to be perfect from the beginning,
right.
because we make mistakes and that's how we learn. But it's better to start and make mistakes than not to start at all. So that's the one bit of advice I would give to anyone.
I would agree. And I think, what one tip that I think would make it a lot easier on people, especially if they're worried about, they're a brand or whatever. Don't make it about you, make it about them. I mean, it could be something as simple as, people that watch my YouTube channel, they're in my newsletter for the channel. I call them writers, because I end every video with remember to write right. And so I started off with, hey, writers. That's simple, and again, they feel like a community because they've got a nickname and all that other stuff. Do you have to do that? Absolutely not. But again, it's making it about them, not about you, and anytime a person, I don't even want to say customer, a person feels like someone is interested in them and cares about them, they're way more likely to be, reciprocate and, read what you wrote, buy your books or whatever. So again, I know it can be daunting. It can be scary, especially starting out. But I would, do like Nuria said, and, look at some of these places, whether it's MailChimp or Aweber or wherever. And, just if find one that's free and sign up for it. Just do it. Just you bite the bullet and sign up for it. Yeah. So you've already taken that first step and it's not cost you anything, and again, like you said, you can always change, because I used to have MailChimp. Now I've migrated over to Aweber. But again, I find it's a lot less scary when you just bite the bullet and take that first step. And then it's like, okay, now I have a provider. Now what do I do? And taking each step at a time, so I have the email provider. Now what do I do? Create a landing page, and most of them, and there's YouTube videos on how to do it depending on what platform you're on. But most of them are very simple. It doesn't have to be super elaborate. We talked about that, in previous episodes about, like an author website we talked about last week, but it doesn't have to be super elaborate. One page landing page, people can just sign up, there, you've already done 2 steps. You technically have a landing page now, and it's literally just been, 1 step at a time.
Yeah. And I think we can do a whole new episode on where to go from there now. Once you set up your email service, what do you do next? How do you set up your landing page? What is that even? What is a landing page? And how do you create a lead magnet, or what is that? How do you even get emails back? How do you target people? So all of that, I think, is for another episode, because that's a whole new topic. But it's not as difficult as it sounds. It really isn't. Yeah. If I've done it, anyone can do it. So
well, and that's the stuff that I think can get daunting and scary, and you can get just caught up in the weeds, and it's like, do you have a newsletter yet? Yeah. Do you have an email list yet? No. Then don't worry about that stuff yet. That's why I said, find a platform. Preferably, if you're just starting out, go with free. There's plenty of them that offer a free option, and start there. Sign up. Again, it's free. Step 1. Step 2, create a landing page for your email list. Mm-hmm. That's it. And then we can take it from there. And I mean, people who are listening and watching, they can let us know if they'd like to see, or listen to, another episode where we go a little bit more in depth with email lists. I mean, I've had mine for probably 5 or more years by now. And so, there are definitely pros and cons that I've learned over the years. I will say I'm not perfect. I mean, mine have typos in them sometimes. I mean, I've usually gotten better at it, but people don't care, honestly. There have been times I've actually tested that out. Like, I've intentionally put, typos in there just to see how many people catch it. Do they respond? Do they unsubscribe? And, I've never gotten any negativity from it. I think it makes you look more human, really. And so, especially if you make it a funny one, which is what I had done. But yeah, it's just, don't take it too serious. There's so much stuff in business that is monotonous and boring and, or difficult or whatever. And having an email list should not be one of them. It's a lot scarier than it really is, and again, I've known plenty of people like myself who put it off for years, but like I said earlier, I don't know anyone that currently has it that regrets having it.
Yeah.
So, I think that's, I never hear anybody say, absolutely don't do an email list. I never hear that advice, and because of that should tell you how important having one is. If people are telling you to have one and no one is saying don't have one, they might tell you don't need one, which, I disagree with, but no one's ever saying don't do it. Tells me, just reinforces the fact that it really is, something that you really want to have. So do
Definitely.
you need it? No. But do I think everybody in business should have one? Absolutely, because I think your business will benefit from it.
Yeah, definitely. Because I was one of those people that thought I don't need it, mainly because I didn't know why and what the benefits were. But now, having been in both situations, definitely go for an email list, because it's your connection with your subscribers, with your buyers, with whoever you want to connect with, and it's so important, and it really elevates your business. So yes, I would say it is essential.
Yeah.
Knowing the difference, I think it is essential. Yes.
Yeah. And just to kind of wrap it up, at least from my standpoint, if you're on the fence of whether or not you want one for your business, and this will be, we can do a whole episode just on this topic I'm about to say, and that is the amount of money you can make from an email list. Like I've seen people whose businesses weren't doing that well, and their email list saved their business.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't think people give it enough credit of what you can do, especially if you start thinking outside the box. But again, that's all for another episode.
We'll have to make another one, definitely, on that topic.
Yeah. I mean, if enough people enjoyed this one, then yeah, we can definitely do more.
Yeah.
Well, this has been another great mastermind area. Once again, a huge thank you to all our listeners and viewers who came to tag along. If you enjoyed today's mastermind and you haven't already, please consider following or subscribing to the podcast, and maybe leaving us a review on your platform and let us know what you thought. Until next week, I'm Keith Wheeler.
And I'm Nuria Colby.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining the Mastermind today. Be sure to follow the podcast on your platform of choice and tell a friend who would enjoy it too. Your support is greatly appreciated. This has been the Masterminding Success Podcast.